go ahead, Paul.
We're going to level out at around about 6,000 feet approximately, over.
Okay, right you are.
Balloon to Judy, are you happy to release? Over.
Yes, affirm, Paul, happy to release.
Doing countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
World Hang Gliding Championships in Kossen, Austria, where over 300 pilots from 40 countries gathered for the carnival atmosphere, the fun, the excitement, and the chance to compete for the highest accolade in a sport considered by many to be suitable only for the adventurous, the daredevil, or the completely mad. First developed as part of the research into the United States space program, hang gliding was swiftly adapted by the enthusiasts in the quest to conquer man's oldest and greatest ambition. Kossen itself is a picturesque town high in the Austrian Tyrol, not far from the famous skiing resorts of Kitzbühel and Sol. Its very relaxed surroundings proved to be a magnificent setting for the teams and supporters who took over the town for the 2 weeks of competition. And for many who'd come halfway around the world, it would also be a holiday of a lifetime. After a week of settling into the town's sleepy routine, all thoughts went to the competition days ahead. But how do you judge a hang gliding competition? We asked Derek Evans, manager of the British team.
Well, it's judged on speed, distance, or time in the air. In the old days, it was time in the air and the ability to land on a spot. Now it's the ability to travel 100 kilometres in the quickest time.
That sounds incredible to actually travel those sort of distances.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way in 10 years. And with the machinery we've got now and the knowledge that these guys have built up, we're almost up with the sailplanes, apart from the speed element.
How dangerous a sport is it?
It's as dangerous as you want to make it. Technically, it's perfectly safe, just as driving your car is technically perfectly safe. Judgment of conditions, judgment of how you fly will determine how safe it is. But there'll be no accidents here to date, and I doubt if there'll be any more. I don't know if that record will change during the rest of the competition. I think it'll be 4 teams who will be fighting for the gold medals. Australia, the Americans, the Canadians, and us. And I rate our chances as very high.
And how do flying conditions compare with those back home?
Totally different. We fly on 600-foot hills at home. We've got 5,000-foot hills here, mountains, lee-side thermals. The heat of the sun is greater. There's more rock here. The thermals will be more turbulent, and they've got to be pretty brave guys who stick it out for 5 or 6 hours each day. It's a beautiful sport. That is one of the beauties of the sport. You can be above the snow line, above the tree line, above people, away from pollution. It's a marvellous feeling.
For the first week of competition, the pilots were divided into 4 groups, and each day they would be given different routes to fly, points being awarded for every 2 kilometres flown. Then at the end of the week, the 40 highest scoring pilots would go through to the finals. Favourites to join this elite group of pilots include defending champion Australian Steve Moyse. From Great Britain, John Pendry, the country's only professional pilot. American Larry Tudor, the unofficial world distance record holder, an amazing 216 miles. And fellow American Rich Pfeiffer. The pilot's favourite is Britain's John Pendry.
John, well, you're just about to take your first launch of the championship. How are you feeling?
Fairly good. A bit nervous because it's the first day, but the conditions look brilliant, so yeah, it's nice to start with a day that's like this. I'm feeling good, ready to go.
And where are you going today?
We're going to Schmittenau, which is just near Zellamzee, then back to Wildekogel, which is down the Zillertal Valley, further back towards the west, and then back to Kossen. So it's a fairly long flight. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but I think it's close to 100 miles to fly.
Are you quite confident that you can do that sort of distance?
Oh yeah.
How long will it
Confident
take
enough
you?
I can do it. Probably take at least 6 hours, at least. And then after that, when we get back to Kossen, we've got a mini triangle to go around there, round and round as many times as we possibly can, so we could be flying till sort of 8 o'clock tonight, something like that.
Doesn't it get really tiring?
It does sometimes. It depends. On a day like this, when the conditions are good, you sort of get absorbed in it, and especially when you're competing as well. You're just concentrating so much that it doesn't get tiring until you land. Then you're tired.
Now, how easy is it finding places?
It's not too bad. Especially, we've been here a week practicing and got to know the area pretty well. I know where I'm going well, so I shouldn't get lost, I don't think.
Now, you are one of the favourites to win the competition. Does that worry you?
I think it puts a bit more pressure on you, yeah. Because, people are saying, oh, you're going to win all the time. It definitely puts more pressure on you. It's something you just have to forget about, really, and get on with the flying.
Rich, what do you see in hang gliding? Why do you go in for this sort of sport?
I'm looking more into what we can do and not what we're just doing, and it's just a fun, inexpensive way to fly. I'm looking at, when I fly, I never land in landing areas. I always go cross country, and in summertime I average over 100 miles of flight, and I'm having a good time, and it encompasses a lot of people you can take with you as a crew, and it's a group effort. You get out there with your friends, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a good sport.
A lot of people must think you're crazy jumping off the edge of a cliff.
These gliders are safer than most airplanes. The handling's better. We just lack the high-speed end, and the safety record speaks for itself right now.
I know sometimes I look over the edge of the cliffs that you jump from, and it really makes me feel sort of a bit queasy.
Oh yeah, I'm scared of heights too, but when you're on a glider, you're not just jumping off without anything, so it's all right. I was a skydiver, world champion at that. When you get low in free fall, it gets scary, but if you're not low, the ground's far away, it's no problem.
Sooner you than me.
Hey, you have to give it a try before you knock it.
How'd it go, John?
Pretty good.
You completed the course?
Well, yeah. Except I couldn't quite get the last pylon. Well, I got it once. Went round the valley here once. I just couldn't get up to get round the second time.
So how are you feeling now?
Worn out.
You've been up a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a long time.
Right, are you pleased with today's?
Yeah, it's just a bit frustrating, that last bit.
Do you think you can improve on it tomorrow?
I hope so.
Right, so what do you do now then? Have a long shower and a drink?
Yeah. And go to bed, get ready for tomorrow.
By the end of the preliminary rounds, things were going very much according to expectations, with both the United States and Australia getting 5 of their teams of 8 through, while British pilots did exceptionally well, 7 out of 8 qualifying. There were also other good team performances, particularly from the Canadians, the Germans, and the Spanish. On the individual front, a number of pilots were showing defending champion Steve Moyse that he shouldn't take things for granted, including American Chris Bulger, Australian Rick Duncan, and Britain's Graham Slater. But the biggest shock was felt in the American camp, where Rich Pfeiffer had failed to qualify.
Well, I happened to land in Germany on the first flight of the competition. The day before the competition started, they put a new rule in, which was landing outside of the country would receive a 0, and I was never told of the rule. It wasn't in the rule book, and when we went up the hill for the first flight, they posted it on the board that day, so we really didn't get a chance to see it. But the next day, I found out from all my friends that I was going to get a 0 for it, and it went to litigation, and it was off again, on again for about a week. And I just had to assume I was going to get scored and fly my best, and I did do that in the preliminaries. I flew good enough to where I felt good about my flying and got respect from my peers. And John Pendry won the group, and I beat him every day, so I feel good about that.
So overall, you must feel quite sick about it.
I would feel sick about it if I wasn't flying so good, but I feel good about flying. And the winner of the meet is the guy who's going to get hurt worse than I am, because I only had to do good for a week, and now everyone thinks that I could have won the meet, which is a real possibility. But I didn't have 2 weeks in which I had to perform. I only had to perform in 1 week, so it's really unfair to declare me an unofficial winner, as some people are doing, but it's unfair to the winner more so than me.
It is apparent now that the organisers were determined to stick to the rule book, as every team was finding out.
Right, at the briefing this morning then, they made it very clear that they're going to run it according to all the precise rules. And they read out some faults with the pictures on the Sunday run. You know, the short run from the top there. Sinclair, no picture of the landing area. Scott landed outside the landing area but claimed 10 points. Michel, no picture of the landing area, no number of the glider in the air. Jarman, no picture of the landing area. And 3 other guys without the 3rd number in front of their number on the wing. So they can't identify those guys precisely from their films. And Carl said, DSQ if there's anything wrong with your pictures from now on. On the scores yesterday, we were whopped to a certain extent by 100 points by the Aussies. They're now in the lead, 84 points ahead of us. We're still ahead of the Yanks, though. We're about 100 points ahead of the Yanks. Canada, 310 behind us. And for the first time, John Pendry's not in the lead, but nothing much in it. Now, you've all got your passports, because retrieve back via the Autobahn is a problem. Got your passport, Graham? Passports?
Leaving their supporters behind, but in permanent radio and telephone contact, the team sets off.
Do you want these radios, Derek? What? Do you want these radios? Take them. Yeah, I'll take them.
Because the sport relies so heavily on weather conditions, particularly the wind direction, no one knows at the beginning of the day what their task will be. All they do know is where the day's takeoff will be from. Today, it's Zillertal, the highest launching point in the competition. This means a 2-hour drive across the border into Germany, along the Autobahn, and then back again into Austria, with a long haul up the narrow mountain roads. This gives the pilots plenty of time on their own to talk tactics and to look at the scenery. If you think hang gliding is a sport in which all you do is fly and admire the views, you'd be wrong. Like every sport, there are parts which are not quite so much fun. For a start, you certainly have to be fit.
not going up. I'm not going up.
Yeah. See it? They all look like they've got...
Could be good.
Southwest bit.
After checking the wind direction and cloud formation, they then start putting together their gliders, a job each pilot does quietly and efficiently, on his own, making all those fine adjustments on which his life depends.
Ready off, straight off. Window opening at 11:15 until 2 o'clock. ZC, which is Hopgonic Arthur's Gaff, followed by the small triangle KE, no control points, and toss and goal. Have you all got the photograph of the board then? Board, glider number on the ground, glider number, I suggest, as you cross the valley here, in your first glide. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, we'll have a beat there.
Right, let's get back up to the top.
Once set the task, the pilots are given a period of time during which they must take off, usually 2 hours. They call this the window. As they're only allowed one attempt, it's the skill in judging when conditions are right that can make or break a champion. When they feel those conditions are right, every pilot can suddenly take off within minutes. Today, conditions are particularly blustery, making the task that much more difficult. John Pendry was first off. Quickly, other pilots followed, wanting to take advantage of the passing thermal and perhaps stay on his heels. Their judgment looked good. The thermal was there, and up they spiraled to start the day's flight. Some pilots, however, decided to wait a couple of minutes before they took off, hoping to gain from seeing how the others were coping. Perhaps even a better thermal might come along. This was the risk that they had to take. No matter what, there were plenty of supporters ready to offer advice where needed and keep track on their team's performance. The views from Zimmertal were quite staggering. Although the temperatures were in the 80s, snow was still lying on the north-facing slopes. Some pilots preferred to take off later than others, but less than half an hour after the first pilot had gone, the last of the field finally disappeared, off across the snow-capped mountains. For the supporters left behind, all you could do was watch, wait, and hope. This was also the time when you could take a break, as no pilot was likely to be down for a good while. Today's task was considered by most to be particularly difficult, and when the news came through that Steve Moyse had come down 3 miles short of the landing field, all eyes were searching the sky to see who would be first to return home. Making it back to the landing field means a 15-point bonus, and with the competition being so close, that could lift you 2 or 3 places in the championship. At last, someone had been spotted. A quick check of the pilot's wing number, it was 311, Britain's Michel Carnet. This was a tremendous result for him, lifting him 22 places in the points table from 29th to 7th. Second in, John Pendry, always a favourite with the crowd. This performance took him back to first place in the championship. Third to land, Canadian Randy Haney, a pilot who'd been surprising everybody over the last few days and was showing that he could well be in contention for the title as he lifted himself 10 places to third overall.
Hi Randy, how's it going?
Good.
Good flight?
Yeah, just a little sore.
Yeah. You seem to be doing very well over the last couple of days.
Yeah, the past 2 days have really picked up.
Yeah. Well, you're only the third person to land today, so you've done very well.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Good. Good. Great.
That makes you feel better?
Yeah. 7 hours and 35-minute flight.
Yeah.
So, a little tired, hungry, and thirsty. But...
How far did you fly? You got dead flies all over your face. I reckon it's about 50 miles an hour to get flies like that.
Although everyone's out to win, the pilots are the first to congratulate one another on their performances, exchange stories of their flights, and then prepare for the start of another day. In the American camp, things were not going well. First, they lost Rich Pfeiffer in the preliminaries, and now their other pilots were not living up to expectations.
You know what the situation is today. We have about 3 more days of competition left, and Great Britain are leading the team competition with Australia second and us third. And John Pendry is leading the individual competition with Stephen Moyes is second. And our best pilot is Mark Bennett on 9 and Rick Rawlings on 14. Rich is going to be riding shotgun, riding out ahead, but because it's a crapshoot, because we must take the chances, we have to go for the early launches and almost ignore what the other teams are doing.
Where's Zellamzee's right?
Yeah, zip through here and go right up the end.
Rumour has it that today might be an open distance flight, where the pilots literally just keep on flying in a straight line until they run out of thermals and are forced to land. With so many points at stake, it's a day the Americans can't afford to mess up.
Well, make it or break it, Dane.
But despite this, the team still managed to keep their spirits high as they loaded their gliders and once again headed off up the chairlift.
Well, Luigi, I'll double your bet. I'll bet you $20,000 today the U.S. team wins. Okay?
20,000?
20,000.
You're on, man.
Okay.
Shake on it?
Shake.
It'll get windy later. I think, see the cumulus out to the west now. It'll quickly get good and then too good, overdevelop. So the guys that have got up and gone. That's why Bob and Richie here and everybody at the front will get gone. It'll probably thunder later. It's so unstable today, so gone. Get the miles done.
New takeoff.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of the takeoff possibilities, Bob? Only one at a time, though. Is that right?
What's that?
Only one at a time takeoff here. Sounds bad news.
Well, what else can you do?
Penders is convinced that it's better for the other half to be on the other takeoff. Rely on the sun.
There is some cloud cover. It looks like a double layer. You can see that yourself.
By now, the open distance task had been confirmed.
Well, Larry, do you think it's an impossible task today to reach the goal?
No, it's never impossible. Somebody will probably make it. Seems like somebody always completes the task, no matter how difficult they make it.
You're the unofficial world distance champion. Surely you must be one of the favourites to complete the course.
Yeah, well, this is a totally different place to fly than Owens Valley of California. We're not flying over desert terrain. We're flying over green mountains where the thermals aren't as strong, and it takes a much more patient style of flying here. You need to get much higher before leaving thermals, and you don't have as much vertical to work with each time either. In the Owens Valley, you can go to 18,000 feet, and you can go long ways from 18,000 feet. Here, you need to get every foot you can before you leave.
Meanwhile, the Americans' run of bad luck continues.
Marky's glider didn't get put on the car this morning.
That's cute. Well, are you reserving a place while somebody runs down and gets it over?
Mark is down there now trying to get it. I think he's fuming. Anyway, over. You just call me up when you see something happening, okay?
Although pilots were again allowed over 2 hours to take off, no one wanted to delay their start, as not only was there a potentially long flight ahead, but the weather forecast was not good.
Well, he took off down from there and went round. Did he go round that way?
I go round the other way.
No, round that way.
How did Steve Moyes feel about the task?
I've done quite a few long distances myself. I've had probably 12 flights over 100 miles, which is a lot, and you know, that's one of my specialties also.
Now, it is a long course. It's, what, over 300 kilometres if you get to the end. What do you think about whilst you're up there?
You're really concentrating on what you're going to do next. You have to make a lot of decisions, valley changes, where to get your next lift, watching the wind, the time, and your total concentration, you don't even feel the time go by. I flew 7 hours yesterday and didn't realise it was that long.
Now, you'd be up in the air for, say, 7 hours. How can you manage to stay up in the air for so long?
Just by watching the clouds and using the rising air to your advantage all the time. Getting a free ride out of anything that comes along.
Come on, next one.
As so often happened during the competition, once one pilot launched, everyone wanted to go, for fear of missing out on the good thermals. As Larry Tudor takes off, the pressure shows, for he comes nearer than anyone else to having a mishap on takeoff, as he only just misses the trees on this risky 360-degree turn. What about John Pendry? How does he feel?
The tricky bit is getting up in the air at the moment.
Now, some people are taking off this side of the hill, some people are taking off the other side of the hill. Why is that?
Well, the sun's beating down on that side of the hill and the thermals are coming up over there, but the wind is actually blowing this way, so it's coming up here. So you either take off into the wind and fly around into the thermals, or wait till the thermal wind blows up the other side and take off into that.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to take off here on this side. I think it might start working this side in a couple of minutes, a few minutes, hopefully, and with a bit of luck we'll be able to just get up here. That's what you don't want to do. Bit dodgy.
Lovely. Keep going. Larry to the east.
I can see Larry, he's getting up there.
He's going up. Michelle's behind me.
As the later pilots start taking off, the concern shows on their faces. Do they take off now with the main group, or hope that the wind might change? As they all head off east towards Vienna, the weather forecasters were proved correct. The rain came down over the mountains, killing the thermals and dampening any hopes of a new record being created. Haut Salve is a familiar sight to the visitors of the skiing slopes around Sol, but in the summer it's also a superb location for hang gliding. Although the sight of gliders gives the impression of calm and serenity, the atmosphere in the team camps has become increasingly tense. So much so that the Australians and British base themselves on opposite sides of the slope.
So I'd like Joe, will you be up there amongst them with your radio and tell us when the Aussies go and who's going?
It should be Bob and Michelle because they're the lower two.
No, I'm not going to follow anybody. I'm not doing my own thing.
Bob who? Calvi. Bob Calvi and Michelle should be marking them to a certain extent.
No, I can't mark anybody. I can't follow anybody. It just happens with the weather.
If they go real early, first off, they can clean up the course.
Yeah, but they'll blow. You know your theory, Bob. If you're going to win, you've got to do something different.
Right. Well,
we don't want. Yeah, we don't want them to do something different. In other words, we mark. If in other words, we just marked the four of them and played one-on-one, they couldn't beat us, could they?
By now, the individual championship had become a two-horse race between defending champion Steve Moyse and Britain's John Pendry. With 26 points separating the two of them, the pressure was on Steve Moyse to take all the risks, while all John Pendry had to do was to keep an eye on Moyse and play safe. First off, the wind dummies, non-competition pilots who test the winds and thermals for the competing teams. Things looked good, so first to go was John Pendry, followed swiftly by Steve Moyse. Meanwhile, the rest of the field were also battling it out, as the lower placings were still wide open in both the team and individual divisions. And as once again bad weather was being forecast, many knew that this would be the last chance of effective competition. Right to the very end, support was always there, whatever the pilot's chances of success. Back at the Cosson landing field, the excitement was rising. The morning's weather forecast had proved correct. Everyone now realized that the first of the leading trio of pilots home could end up being the eventual winner. Anxious eyes were scanning the sky, looking to see who that would be. And there they were, still stuck closely together, Steve Moyse desperately trying to shake off the persistent challenge of John Pendry. With his girlfriend Hillary willing him on, he heads for the trees to try for more lift. But it was too late in the day. The thermals were dying out, the land was cooling down, and the duo had to finally make for the landing field. First down, John Pendry, with Steve Moyse hard on his heels. That meant that after all that battling, both had picked up exactly the same number of marks, therefore not changing the 13-point lead still held by the Briton. Steve Moyse recalled that grueling flight.
We flew together all the time and ended up landing together.
I saw you having a right ding-dong of a battle behind us over in the trees.
Yeah, well, the idea was to try and get back up again. If one of us could get back up again, it would have been fun. But there wasn't any, it was very low, and there wasn't enough lift to gain altitude, so we ended up coming down. I heard there's bad weather coming, so let's play it by ear.
As expected, the weather turned for the worse. Thunderclouds hung low over Cosson, but it didn't dampen the spirits of the teams, who were determined to get in as many hours of flying as possible. Even so, pilots were beginning to show concern, as every move could determine the result of the competition.
Bob, what do you reckon I should do? Well, the day is the best it is now. By 5 minutes it'll be worse, it'll get worse until it rains in 2 hours. But at the moment, we're winning. Big sucker. We're winning. So until somebody else takes off, I think we just stand here and win it on the ground. Yeah. The rain is 2 hours away. I think it's going to shut down. Rain dance. Yeah.
The position for the Americans and Australians wasn't looking good. The Americans, out of the individual gold, still had hopes for a team bronze. As for the Australians, if Steve Moyse was to retain his title, then rain was the last thing they wanted. British pilot Bob Calvert was first away. He was lying third overall and always preferred getting up in the air as soon as possible. John Pendry followed closely behind, knowing that there was very little chance of losing his lead as long as he took off before the storm broke. Takeoff was restricted to 2 pilots at a time, and as many Britons as possible tried to take off first, hoping therefore to delay the Australians and ruin their chances of finding the best lift. All, that is, except Captain Bob Bailey. He volunteered to stay back in order to wait for Steve Moyse to take off. Then, by shadowing him as closely as possible, it would be easier for the others to read the wind and thermals around the Australian's glider, so being able to determine whether or not he's able to make a serious challenge for the lead. Although everyone did take off, the storm started moving in from the mountains, which gave the pilots 2 choices. Either keep flying till the thermals run out, or fly into the clouds and above the storm. That would mean running the risk of being hit by lightning, something every hang glider dreads. Is winning any competition worth that sort of risk?
This is the World Championships, and when people went off, it didn't look anything like this. Everyone knew what the weather forecast was. It's a very, very, very tough meet, and Steve Moyse and John Pendry are separated by only 15 points, so one of those 6 pilots up there could be Steve Moyse. I haven't seen John Pendry. If it is Steve Moyse who's up there, then this will be the flight that wins him the meet. He'll fly anywhere to do that.
Will they fly above the storm?
Well, they've flown through it. They've just sort of hung in through it, and you saw that when the clouds disappeared, or went away further on down the valley there were 6 pilots left in the air. One of them's mine, Mark Bennett, is an American. He's up there with a couple of Australians and 2 others I haven't been able to identify.
Well, Steve Moyse hadn't been able to stay up, and like most pilots, made for the safety of the landing field. In doing so, he'd forfeited his crown as the rain hung over Cosson for the next 2 days, bringing the championship to an early end and confirming the British team as the new world champions.
This is from me personally, not as team manager. You're a great bunch of lads, best team in the world. You couldn't have done better. For me, in my retirement year, terrific flying. Well done, John. Well done, the whole of the team. Great team effort.
Ironically, on the day of the prize giving, the weather resumed to the perfect hang gliding conditions which had prevailed throughout the competition. And so some of the pilots used the day to show off their skills or just make their final flights before returning home. In what had turned out to be the closest and probably the best World Championships ever, there had been surprises and disappointments. Canada had been the surprise team of the year, coming in 4th. The United States were disappointed with their 3rd position. Australia came in 2nd, while the British regained their team crown, which they lost 4 years ago. In the battle for the individual gold, it was a disaster for the Americans, with their highest-placed pilot, Mark Bennett, finishing 9th. The Canadians, however, were thrilled with their performance, not only because of reaching 4th in the team placings, but their top pilot, Randy Haney, surprised and thrilled everyone by ending 3rd and taking the bronze. In great sporting style, the Australians set aside their disappointment to applaud the 2nd place of Steve Moyse. And the new world champion, the man who was always favourite, but still managed to capture the imagination of the crowd in his quiet, unassuming way, Britain's John Pendry.
Look at the camera. Someone take me picture, please.
One for wings.
Congratulations, John. How many years has it taken to reach this level of competition?
Well, I've been flying for 11 years now, so I suppose it's taken me that long to get there.
And how's it feel?
Great. Brilliant. That's what I've been aiming at for all this time. I don't think it's really quite sunk in yet, but, you know, it's a brilliant feeling anyway.
It was a very narrow victory. Was it a tough competition?
Yeah, it was. Very tough. I mean, we've flown such a lot and it ended up so close. It got, you know, very tense at the end. And there was, you know, so few points in it.
So what's your next ambition?
Win it again.
freedom of flight, to fly like a bird, has intrigued adventurers and innovators down the centuries. Back then, who would have believed jet planes circumnavigating the globe, satellites orbiting the planet, or man walking on the moon? In the purest form, hang gliding is the closest to nature, relying on the wind, changing temperatures and air currents to soar in prolonged flight with the breeze against your cheeks. The first known hang glider was flown in the 1890s by Otto Lilienthal. The Wright brothers' attempts to launch powered aircraft were to follow into the 20th century. The Great War hastened the development of powered flight, and hang gliders didn't break away from the tow rope stage until the 1960s. Since then, the improvement has been rapid. They can soar to heights of 7,000 metres, cover distances of 350 kilometres, and navigate triangular courses in cross-country competitions. Australia has been one of the leaders in the evolvement. Australia now has the world champion team and the individual champion. The best pilots from 15 countries have come to Mount Buffalo in the Victorian Alps for the Blue Stratos World Cross Country Classic in the new year of 1985. The best performed visitor, Englishman John Pendry, a full-time competitor and one of the few to be fully sponsored. He tours the world for his sport and last year won the International Cup at the Australian Championship. Chip Henley of the United States, one of 5 Americans here. The Mount Buffalo Classic rates second only to the Owens Valley Classic in California. Another American, Pat Leach. The conditions in Australia most resemble his homeland, lofty launching sites and warm open fields. One of the locals, Ian Jarman, who was a member of the Australian team which won the World Championship in West Germany 1983. Bruno Moser of Switzerland should be used to the alpine takeoffs. And the reigning world champion, Steve Moyes of Sydney, another full-time professional. French-born current British champion, Michel Carnet. The breathtaking Mount Buffalo site is the venue for the World Championship in 1988. The world's best will be here then and are using the Blue Stratos Classic as a chance to get used to the 1,400-metre altitude launch and meet the world champs in their home skies. The conditions will allow for climbs up to 3,000 metres and hopefully a new distance record of 300 kilometres. It makes for palpitating excitement for the competitors and spectacular viewing. World champion Steve Moyes won here last year. He loves Buffalo, not only as a competition site, its beauty is travellogue material.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I come here every year, and you're flying around some of the most beautiful terrain you could ever imagine, and the air is always big, the clouds are always high, you know, the whole place is really, you know, massive.
And how do these conditions suit the Europeans?
Quite different to anything they've ever flown. A lot hotter than they're used to. The mountains are pretty similar to the Alps, and the hospitality from the farmers there, I'm sure they'll enjoy.
The takeoff is one of the most imposing in the world. The 350-metre sheer cliff face requires a pilot rating level 5. Mistakes here could be sudden death. One American once said, you can try to win a cross-country contest or you can try to stay alive, but you can't do both. This contest is to prove how close to the truth that is.
Clear to go.
The affable Michel Carnet left France for Britain and the regular competition of their professional league and became British champion.
Clear to go. Yeah, clear to go.
A near disaster for third seed Alan Daniel. If the nose hadn't caught the ramp when the kite tipped, he could have somersaulted down the cliff face. For John Pendry, next off, an unsettling experience. But now Daniel has his heart in his mouth as he prepares again for launch. This time away, Alan Daniel goes on to win the day. The number 2 seed, the Flying Peanut, Englishman John Pendry, is jittery as he launches over the Ovens Valley. And world champion Moyes in hot pursuit as the wind swirls.
It's really fantastic. Really exhilarating stuff, I would think, providing it all goes well. But there were some quite close to the bottom, and I guess they were right, but they certainly put your heart in your mouth for a while there, wondering what they're all about. When they first take off, the thermals just pick them up and take them away into the higher reaches. That's a fantastic experience.
Where is it? Anybody got a fix? Yeah, he's going down to the switchback about 100 yards from the rock face. Is he all right? I'm not sure.
Who is it?
It's John Pendry.
John, where are you?
John?
John? John?
I'm over here. I'm all right, I'm over here.
For the first time in his life, John Pendry has deployed his parachute. Unbelievably, he's found a clearing bigger than his kite. The trees softened the fall.
It was upside down when I landed. I landed king post first, so I think it must have happened in the air.
What attitude were you when you came down? Where were you in the glider?
Well, I tried climbing up in the A-frame and it flipped over and it came the right way up and then went into a steep dive and started picking up speed. So I moved towards the back of the sail again and it went upside down again and was coming down slower, so I thought I'd just stay there. I knew I wasn't that high above the ground, so I thought I'd better get my chute out quick. So I threw it out, opened fine, and came down fairly reasonably slowly, down through the trees. Had a really gentle landing in the trees. Luckily, I haven't done too much damage.
John Pendry's ground crew, girlfriend Hilary Smith.
I just heard over the radio, and I was on my way down anyway. So they said Devil's Elbow, and I was about there on the road. So I stopped some people, and they said, oh yeah, we've just seen him coming down on a parachute. So I just waded through all this lot and got here, and he was all right. Well, he's lucky to be all right, I think.
Yeah.
Back on top of the mountain, and Pendry is preparing for a relaunch before time runs out. Miraculously, he survived, but there is still concern about his condition.
You sure you're all healthy and not head spinning?
No, I landed really gently.
On the
some people know how to do it, don't they?
You want another glider, or you want to fly that one?
I think I can fly this one. I'm pretty sure it's all right. I've got broken left line and broken base tube. That's all.
You haven't pulled out the leading edges?
Yeah, I've got spares for them.
You haven't looked at the leading edges and here?
No, I'll have a look at it before I...
Yeah, you will.
I'll leave it alone, John.
How are you? Shaken by the experience, a new one for him, Pendry has come through unscathed, but his kite needs some hurried repairs. His urge to compete will see him make it in time. Competition director Kelvin Smith explains why he gets a relaunch.
There's no specific rule that covers a parachute deployment in this competition. I had to look at John's situation from where he actually deployed his chute, remembering that also that it wasn't his fault, it wasn't an error on his part that he had the chute deployment. It could have happened to any of the 66 pilots who are in the competition. From the point John was at, he had two options. He could have done the course, headed out for the course. He had not made that decision yet. Or he could have bombed out and landed in the Burrs. Seeing he was taken away the option to do either of those, I had to give him the benefit of the doubt that if he hadn't have done the course, he'd have landed in the Burrs and therefore gained a reflight.
With the flirtation with death so vivid in his mind and the opposition already well out on the task, one of the favourites for the event tentatively edges towards a fresh start in the comp with a lot on his mind.
I've got two main concerns. One is that the glider's okay. Despite having checked it over, it's definitely worrying.
The man who's always made hang gliding look so easy now has to pick up the pieces.
taken off, and the glider seems to be flying fine. No different from before. So that's one worry out of the way at least. My next main concern is to try and recover from the position I'm in and do well in the competition.
Meanwhile, Alan Daniel is well out on course after his false start, which nearly saw him tumble down the cliff face to the valley floor below. The day proves to be a disappointment, and none of the 62 will complete the triangular course. Rather than fastest time, it's a struggle to stay airborne in late afternoon, and the one to fly furthest will don the That's Incredible jacket, which goes to each day's winner. Back over launch, Pendry is aware he needs to squeeze every last metre out of the thermals, which won't last.
We've got 4,500 feet, which should be enough, although this headwind is very strong. I've got somebody in front of me as well in perfect position, so I can see what's happening in the air in front.
Steve Moyes has an innate feel for the air. He's been hang gliding since he was 13, and he thrives on competition.
It all ends up into who can go the longest. Whoever is in the air until the last one to land usually wins. So it's race, 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 and then it's stay high, stay high, stay high as the day wears on.
The Australian world champion and the Englishman, the top seeds, are already engaging in a head-to-head battle. While most of the big guns are landing out, Pendry, who started nearly 3 hours after them, still has height and is pushing for distance. Meanwhile, Moyes is on his last putt. The Daniel brothers, Alan and Bruce, have flown in tandem to share the first day honours. They're from the coastal soaring mecca Stanwell Park in New South Wales. Alan was Australian cross-country champion 2 years ago. Nature can still do better. And so in the fading light and heat, John Pendry, who recovered courageously from the worst experience of his life, is last to touch down. But his distance only matches his close rival Steve Moyes, and they share 5th place overnight.
Well, how far did you get, John?
Well, I got to the turn point and back to here, which must be halfway back to the goal, something like that. If you drop a day, if you do badly one day in this competition, you can't, it's really difficult to get back up, so it's very important to do reasonably well every day.
Why is it hard to get back up?
Mainly because of the point system. You're given 1 point per place, so if you drop a lot of places in one day, you've got to make them all up, and it's very difficult to do. It looks like I've done reasonably well for the day, so you know, without having made that effort, I'd be out of the competition completely. It would stand no chance, but now I've got a chance.
The area provides a variety of launch sites, depending on wind direction. Way below the towering peaks of Mount Buffalo lies Myrtleford. The airstream moving down the valley today is hitting Myrtleford Hill, providing the ideal lift for launch. In fact, today's task is long distance, out to infinity in one direction, which will take them well into New South Wales. There is an air of excitement at the prospects of having a really long flight. It is a day with a good breeze, and the clouds help the job of spotting thermals. It will be late home tonight. Launch is now in order of cumulative placings. With such a big field, the skies can become congested, especially when your nearest rival is right next to you. As we've seen, competition can cause mistakes. Rick Duncan in trouble.
Steve, it's Rick. I've got myself in trouble. What's wrong? I can't get to the headwind landing area. I'm heading downwind, but getting very low. I don't think I can make it out of these trees. I can see you. Keep going, you're nearly there. Rick? Rick, answer me.
Duncan's frantic calls to his friend Steve Moyes ended when his glider hit the trees and crashed from branch to the ground. Steve Blenkinsop sacrificed his good position to go to his aid. Next day, bruised and scratched, Duncan explains what happened as he repairs his kite for the flying ahead.
He's running in third spot, only a couple of points behind the leader. Probably a little bit of pressure and wasn't thinking real straight, and went into an area where I shouldn't have gone. A lot of trees, strong wind, so I turned around to head back into the wind and found that I wasn't going to make it to the headwind landing area. So I had to head tailwind and try and make it, and didn't make it. It's just a stupid error.
Steve, what did you see?
I knew he was in trouble when he was about 3 or 4 kilometres from the clear spot to land, and I saw his shadow getting awfully close to him, and saw him zigzagging down a bit of a gully and having to follow the contours of the gully just to stay clear of the trees, and it was just a matter of time before he went in. And I was cursing him because I knew that, you know, if he went in, I had no choice, you know, unless he got straight on the radio and said he was all right. When he did go in, the glider just stopped dead, you know, near the top of a tree, fell out of the tree, and I didn't see any movement. And so there was really no choice, you know, it's in the rules.
you got to help a glider in distress, and just had to go down and help him out.
So you're still in with a chance?
Yeah, I dropped back 2 places to 5th, but from what I can imagine, I'm only a couple of points out of contention. John Pendry would have moved ahead of fairway yesterday, and you can't give him too much room, so he's looking pretty good at the moment.
The goal will be the airfield at Mount Beauty, which will be an airstrip with 3 gliders in their bags set out end to end, and that will be the aerial gate. There'll be a Blue Stars bird in the air. It won't actually be on the airstrip, but at the lakeside end of the airstrip, and you must cross over that.
Steve Blenkinsop was given 11th place in yesterday's task for overall 6th. Rick Duncan, 22nd, to drop to 5th. No records were set. Hendry's winning distance 160 kilometres to Tumbarumba at the foot of the New South Wales Alps. Moyes finished 4th. But this man will go home with a record. Hiroshi Yamamoto had never exceeded 18 kilometres before, but he broke the Japanese record of 76k in his greatest day in the air. Hiroshi came to Australia for experience and to improve his English. He'd never seen anything like the takeoff at Buffalo before.
So you were scared, but you just, with guts, did it?
Yes.
You've been happy with your long flight?
Yes, I fly 80 kilometers. Yes, I'm very happy.
It's great to see you here. Great to have you in Australia.
Yes, Australia, big country, great area. Yes.
Today's task, around a turn at Gundowring, then a speed run to Mount Beauty, about 80k. For the second time in the competition, one of the leaders has to jump back onto the horse after a fall. Rick Duncan back in the fray.
Starting to climb out, hit a good thermal here at the Happy Valley, and I can see Jarzo and Steve Moyes and Pendry. There's a lot of wind coming from the north heading up the valley towards Mount Beauty, so we have to battle a headwind. John Pendry appears to be having a bit of trouble, and he's on his way down, and it looks like he has missed the turn point. It's hard to say at this time, but he appears to have missed it.
Duncan and Moyes and Kim on the ground are trying to plot Pendry's downfall.
Steve, what's your position now?
I'm in that bowl at about 5-1.
That is him.
Are you the highest in that thermal, Steve?
Yes, Kim. Eric, this is about a 3 up, 4 up.
The flight along the ridge to the turn point at Gundowring is proving a real battle into the strong headwind. Few will make it, but most of those who do will run with the tailwind and make Mount Beauty, except Pendry.
Oh no, I think I might have blown it. So I'm gonna keep trying, keep right into the ridge. See, I'm losing it. Seem to be going down. Not much I can do now. I found a little ridge I can soar on, about 200 feet from the ground. If I can just hang here a little while, I just might possibly get back up. Better keep trying. It doesn't seem to be working.
Henry's landed right at the bottom of where you are there, Steve, in that grass there. So you can pass the house. He's glider on the road.
Must be.
Is he going or coming, Rick? He's on the ground. See that house just below me? He's just at the point of coming back. I think he was going.
Hello? Did he get the... was he going to the turn point?
Is that the sort of place you'd land when you were coming back?
Did he?
Yeah, I guess so.
That guy up... there's, you know, there's two up there. There's one that's low.
Some have taken their photograph at the intersection with not enough altitude to get back. The overseas visitors are having a closer look at the Australian countryside and livestock than they really wanted. Landouts have the ground crews scurrying, and the pilots, like Pat Leach, frustrated at what might have been.
Oh, that's really too bad.
Good flight, Pat.
If I could adjust one more thermal, would have got me all the way back, easy.
Looked like this whole area was ridge starable. It looks like we've got another guy up here who's starting to turn now.
Could have been back in 10 minutes, I swear to God. Could have been back in 10 minutes. 15 anyway.
Mount Beauty Airfield, and among the first home, Rick Duncan, battered and scarred from yesterday's tilt with the trees. He took off late and made it, coming in triumphant. His comeback so complete, he wins the day.
What's your name?
I had to redeem myself for landing in the trees.
Second home and third for the day, the German champion Ottfried Heinelt, placing 12th overall.
Yeah, I threw him up the second time.
Gee, he's going to have the best time.
On a day when only a dozen of the 62 get home, it's great to have your best day. Rod White from Byron Bay will improve no end on his overall 26th with today's 6th place finish.
Yeah.
Steve Moyes reaches Mount Beauty, unlike Pendry, but perhaps his preoccupation with him has cost him some vital places. The world champ is 10th.
How did you go? Straight to the Kiwa? Yeah, I come north, right on the south side of the Pinnacle, then headed north-east, straight across into that bowl just before the turn point. Oh, got a good ride.
I saw you hit there just when I hit there. Except you were about a kilometre ahead of me.
Yeah, you were a little south, drifting in one, you know, the spine that runs...
Run up.
Yeah, we climbed out and got straight there. Got good air all the way. Stevie's on his way.
Oh, mate, bury him.
Stevie will probably get the second fastest time because we took off at the same time.
Well, Jarzo took off with me, and he's with Stephen, so Stephen have to beat Jarzo.
Yeah.
And Kane was with us too.
Yeah.
So he'd have to beat him.
And Rick,
I think it's Kane now.
Won the day.
It looks like it, yes. We took off late and we got better air. So here we are.
Well, this morning you were pretty low and shaken after yesterday's crash. How do you feel now?
Oh, a lot better now. We got up in the cool air and the brain started working a bit more efficiently. Feel good now. So it's good. We've got a few gliders coming in here on launch now, on landing.
So they probably beat me because he launched after me.
Did he?
So did Jarzo. Here comes Jars now. Gee, they both might have beaten me, you know.
Ian Jarman, a member of Australia's champion team, is lying 3rd overall. Later on, the calculations will place him 11th for the day, one behind Moyes.
Oh, you, animal.
Michel Carnet, the Frenchman representing Britain, and the German Heinelt compare flights.
Yeah, no. Me, I had to go, so we went together. I had to come back.
Henry, come to me, you see?
Yeah.
We are the same.
It was you.
Height, yeah. And I fly, and Henry goes on the other side and must land. And I come a little bit higher.
I didn't go because I thought Pendry was too low. With you, I thought that was wrong.
Yeah.
But you did it right.
Tell me.
Finally did a win!
No.
Yeah!
Oh, God.
That was close.
Bill Moyes, Steve's father, is one of the pioneers of hang gliding. In his day, he jumped off into the unknown and more than once came a cropper. Final day, and back to the awesome takeoff in front of the chalet at Mount Buffalo. Today's task, the same as opening day, out to a turning point and back to the Valley Homestead, which has been base for the competition for the last 10 days. Conditions in northeastern Victoria in midsummer are usually perfect, but this year they have disappointed. Again today, the outward leg is into a buffeting headwind.
12, 54, 56.
Steve Moyes and John Pendry have filled the top 2 places since day 3. Moyes leads and needs only to beat him by 2 places to clinch victory. It's the classic match race.
I've just got to forget everybody else and just go for it. That's all I can do. If I mark anybody, I risk not winning by enough, so I'm just going to go for it. Just do my best.
Well, with such a narrow point spread between you and John Pendry, how are you going to play it today?
Well, I'm just going to fly very aggressively in the lift, use all the lift I can, get as high as possible, and just do what I do best, and that's fly hang gliders, make my own decisions, and I think today's going to be quite stable, so I'm going to hang out, hang back, and then come through on the finish.
What he's obviously going to do is try and mark me, and if he manages to do that the whole time and finish immediately behind me, then I've lost, so I've got to lose him.
7th is Michel Carnet, the Frenchman in the British team. Will he fly team tactics with Pendry to help him overtake the leader?
Yes, if it happens and I fly with John, I will obviously try to help him beat Steve, because if he beats Steve with one more person, then he will win the competition. He's got to beat Moyes by 4 points, so if I can help him, I will help him.
What might that involve? Just getting in between John and Steve, making sure there's a few places in there, so you might even land out deliberately if it will help?
No, I will not do that. If I can beat John as well, I will beat John.
12, 54, 56.
John needs people to beat Steve as well. He needs to beat Steve, obviously, but he needs a lot of people to beat Steve as well. So, you know, I will do my best anyway, whatever happens.